If Carl Jung was alive today and he could see the kind of comments I get in my comment sections, he'd be violating half of you. What do I mean by violate? Well, for my American audience, violate means joking, taking the piss out of, basically. And I'm looking at those people that claim that they're enlightened while spending an entire day arguing with a random stranger in my comment sections to prove that they're more enlightened than them. I'm using that as a specific example, but here is the cold, harsh truth. Your shadow does not care how many crystals you've bought. It doesn't care how many times you've put 444 in your Instagram bio, and it certainly does not give a damn about how many books you've read in your lifetime. If you don't face your darkness, it runs your entire life. Period. Full stop. Blank. There's no escaping it. And let me just preface this video by saying, if you don't think that you have a shadow, congratulations, you just met it. Think about this. You meditate, you journal, you read books. These are all good things. But the second your laptop doesn't perform as intended, the second something doesn't go your way, the second you're in a traffic jam and the person in front of you is taking too long or too long for your liking, you suddenly channel the wrath of 1,000 demons. Where the fuck does that come from? Another one. You tell yourself that you're finally over your ex. They're in the past, I'm in the present, let me move on. But then you see an Instagram story from them. And by the way, if you're still following your ex, seek help. You see an Instagram story from them, and suddenly you're enacting a full-blown Shakespearean tragedy. You're preaching abundance on your vision board, but at the Tesco self-checkout, you're arguing with the machine like it's Satan reincarnated. That's not enlightenment. That's your shadow throwing tantrums in different costumes. The truth is this: your shadow does not disappear if you've read The Power of Now. It just learns how to put on yoga pants and say namaste at the end of an argument. Now, if you're completely new to what I'm talking about here, you might be thinking, what the fuck is this guy speaking about? Let me give you guys a bit of context. And for those who already know about Jungian psychology and the shadow, you'll appreciate this. Carl Jung was a Swiss psychologist, psychoanalyst, however you want to term his work, which I think it's even hard and unfair to him to even box him into a category. That's how good he was. But Swiss psychologist will just say, from the 1900s. And he realized through his work that everyone has a side of themselves that they don't want to acknowledge, that they don't know is there. And this is a dark side, a bad side, if you will. Basically, it's the side of us that we've repressed, that's full of our darkest fears, memories we'd rather not face, selfish impulses, you know, dark thoughts, all that stuff. Imagine everything negative about you in a repressed part of you that you don't even know exists. It's like the worst fucking nightmare ever. That's your shadow, basically. It's basically an unconscious hard drive where we store everything that we determine is unacceptable. And here's the hard part, really. The more we repress it, the more we deny it, the more it grows in strength, the more it silently controls our lives from the shadowy depths of our psyche. And that's why I gave those really ultra specific examples earlier, because none of these are actually random, even if we perceive them to be, you know, a reaction in the heat of the moment, or something negative goes our way, goes against us, and, you know, that's just how we respond. None of this is by chance. It's actually our shadow slipping out in those moments where we lack emotional control. The anger, the jealousy, the overreactions, the parts of us that we swear are not there, but that are quietly waiting for their chance to slip out. Think about it like this. If the persona, i.e. the human ego, is the mask that we wear in society to basically make our way through life and pretend that we are nothing more than monkeys in suits, then the shadow is everything that the mask doesn't show. It's the other side of that. One of those is the polished version we're happy showing other people. And the other is the raw version that we don't even want to admit still exists. Now, one of Jung's key insights was that the shadow doesn't just show up in our day-to-day behavior or, you know, less than favorable situations, right? Thinking back to the Tesco checkout. It actually shows up in our dreams. And when you think about it like this, you know, I've said this before, dreams are a gateway into the psyche. I mean, the shadow exists within the psyche, and dreams reveal little insights about that. And so naturally, the shadow is going to make its way into some of our dreams. And at times it'll be very overt, and at other times it would probably require a little bit of knowledge as to how you can analyze certain dreams and symbolism, but I'm not going to bore you with all of that today. I want you to think back to any kind of dreams where you've had like a shadowy figure chasing you, you know, some kind of dark villain, nightmarish type. It doesn't even have to be a person, just something chasing you. I'm sure we've all had dreams like this at some point in our life. These aren't actually random. That's your shadow trying to get your attention. Basically, the things that we've buried during our day-to-day life, returning at night in the form of dreams, wearing a mask. So if you've ever wondered, why do I keep having a recurring dream about some kind of monster or weird humanoid figure chasing me, Slender Man type thing? It's not random. It's your shadow asking you through the vessel of your unconscious, are you finally going to face me? And more importantly, are you finally going to integrate me? And I also want to quickly add some really important context. Now, a lot of people mistakenly view the shadow as a kind of evil, demonic figure. And I'm not going to lie to you guys, I haven't come up with the thumbnail yet as I'm filming this, but I'll probably include that in the thumbnail. And I'll probably use images just like that, because that is how people... It's marketing, I'll be honest with you. But it isn't actually evil, okay? It's not demonic, it's not bad. It's the opposite, really. It's lacking in love. And that's why it acts out in certain moments. That's why you're brought to inexplicable rage or anger or jealousy. Did I just say rage and then anger? I guess same thing. But all of these really strong emotional reactions that you give that kind of make no sense when you look back on them, that's your shadow crying out for your attention. It's lacking in love. And so it's our job to give it that so that we can actually integrate it. I'm also going to quickly reference one of the best trilogies of all time. If you haven't watched Lord of the Rings, then you need to really get a fucking life. But that was a bit harsh. But seriously, watch it if you haven't. Let's look at the character Gollum for a second. He was not just a monster. Remember, once upon a time, he was a normal, really small, weird guy. I'm thinking back to that scene where he like strangles his mate while they're fishing. What a prick. But he was normal. Before the ring found him, he was a normal guy. I shouldn't criticize. He's a victim in this. But let's look at what the ring did. When it found its way into Gollum's life, when he started wearing it and started being basically controlled by it unconsciously, it brought out all of those twisted, neglected parts of himself. And it overtook any kind of existing humanity that he had. That was the only part of him that existed once the ring had its way with him, basically. Pause. We can even take Darth Vader, for example. You know, I'm ticking off all the main trilogies today. Darth Vader is basically Luke Skywalker minus any integration. They both have the same power. They both have the same potential. But one of them was consumed by their wounds, and the other one integrated them. And look at how different their stories pan out. Now, I know these are made-up characters and it's fantasy and whatever the case, but they actually, you know, they stick with us and they kind of impact us in our individual lives. And you have to wonder why. And I really do believe it's because they're a mirror of the unhealed wounds that a lot of people carry. Moving on, let's talk about projection. When we don't heal our wounds, we typically project them... We typically project them onto others. Projector. This is awkward. This was meant to turn on, but yeah, you get the gist. That's why you think your boss is a narcissist or your partner is a problem. That's why people think politicians are ruining their lives, or, you know, they have some kind of negative energy that continuously follows them around. I wonder what that could be. But guess what? And this could be a bitter red pill for some of you to hear, but this is the truth. The thing that you can't stand out there, this external fixation of yours that's causing you all of this misery, it's usually a reflection of something that you yourself have repressed. Jung said it straight. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to a greater understanding of ourselves. There's so much wisdom in those words. If you spot it, you got it. Fuck. And this literally shows up everywhere. You say you can't stay consistent at the gym because you're lazy, but really That's your shadow protecting you from failure. You say money is evil while secretly resenting rich people. That's your shadow rejecting the parts of you that desire power. How many times have you heard some butthurt man say, "Oh, women only want one thing," or some butthurt woman talking about, "All men are trash, all men are trash"? That's the unhealed parts of yourself. That's wounds that these people are still carrying, that they're projecting outward. And listen, I don't know why this isn't obvious, but if you're bringing that energy out, good luck finding a partner. I mean, these people do not help themselves. I want you guys to be brutally honest with yourselves for a second. What's one thing that you complain about in other people or other entities, organizations, whatever the case may be? Drop it in the comments below and then reflect. You can even include this in your comment if you want. Reflect on it and think to yourself, what does this teach me about myself? Is this a part of me that I've rejected, that I've repressed? Drop a comment now. Moving on, the golden shadow, aka the hidden light. This video is not all doom and gloom. There is hope at the end of the rainbow. All right. In all seriousness, your shadow isn't just negative. It's also positive. It's got a good side to it. Your golden shadow are the parts of you that you've disowned because you probably felt like, or you were told by other people, that it's too much. You know, personality, charisma, confidence, sexuality, all of these things that are a little bit too much for the rest of the pussy world to handle, and that unfortunately we live in accordance to. But really, there's nothing wrong with those things. That's you. Own it. For example, maybe as a kid you were told that you're too much or you're too loud or some nonsense like that. So what do we do as kids? Well, we don't know any better. We disown that part of ourselves. Unfortunately, we bury it. Fast forward 20 years, you might actually admire that trait that you buried in others. Again, this is kind of like reverse projection. You might admire other people who are able to just be themselves and express themselves and just be who they are, not realizing that it's actually shining a light on a part of you that you also have buried at one point in time. Imagine we could hold our charisma in our hand, right? I know this is a weird analogy, but imagine my charisma's in my hand right now. I take it to my basement, I lock it up, I throw away the key, and then I watch other people live the life that I could have been living. That's your golden shadow. It's the part of you that's basically dying to grab the mic, but you keep telling it to shut up. The reason I've included that in the video is shadow work isn't just about wrestling with your demons. It's also about reclaiming your buried gold. Carl Jung described the shadow as everything that we repress. Desires, fears, impulses that we don't want to admit to. And if you don't face them, as I said earlier, they sneak out and they appear in moments where it's their only chance to appear, basically, and we usually end up regretting whatever actions that we take as a result, whatever we say or whatever we do. Looking at this from a universal law perspective, and specifically Hermeticism, we can actually bring in the law of polarity here. Point blank, you can't have light without dark. You can't have light without shadow. When you chase one pole, you inflate the other. This is why people who often obsess over positive light energy and all that shit usually explode with rage in certain moments. It's kind of like a sheep in wolf's... Did I just say a sheep in wolf's clothing? A wolf in sheep's clothing. I hope you guys understand what I'm trying to say there. The shadow does not vanish, okay? It balances. Always does. Keep that in mind. And by the way, this isn't just to do with you and I on a personal level. There is also a collective shadow. Jung actually warned us about this. It's the result of what happens when, for example, entire societies deny or repress their shadow, their darkness. And we see this every day. Like, if you're on YouTube right now, I assume you use social media. Hopefully you stay away from the bullshit, but I know some of you don't, because I've seen some of the comments, for God's sake. I'll be talking about watch out for polarizing content, and there'll be people leaving comments about which side of the polarity they support. Bruh, it's like they don't even watch the fucking videos. I've said this before. Twitter, or X, whatever it's called, is the worst example of this. All it is nowadays is two sets of people, two opposite sides, screaming at each other, projecting their unhealed wounds onto one another. Everything within them that they don't want to face, that ironically they hate in others, just being projected all the time. All I see nowadays when I jump on the app is people panicking about AI, political bullshit, right? People ironically contributing to the problem that they think they're on the right side of. All right, divide and conquer. I'm not going to get into this during this video. And then cancel culture. You know, acting like another human being can't make a singular mistake just because they're in the eyes of the public. What nonsense is that? But all of this does actually highlight a very valid point. It's the shadow just on a larger scale. The stuff that we deny in ourselves becomes the very fuel for what we attack other people with. And that's why shadow work isn't just self-help or personal growth. I would argue it's survival nowadays. It's necessary. That reminded me of that Jordan Peterson. It's not okay, it's necessary. But really, it is necessary. Because if you don't face your shadow, you feed into the collective one. And we're seeing this play out in real time. History has shown us this as well. Look what happens when entire societies deny this part of themselves. Look at the decisions they make and the things they do against their fellow man or their fellow woman. It's a sad state of affairs, but I mean, it's just another reflection of how fucked we are, really. I'm going to bring in alchemy very briefly here. In alchemy, this can be likened to Nigredo, the blackening, the descent, the rot, the death. Okay, this is the part that nobody wants to go through. It looks like, you know, an entire collapse of your old identity, heartbreak, depression, you know, anything that really shakes you to your core or from your core. But the alchemists knew that without Nigredo, there can be no gold, there can be no philosopher's stone, there's no albedo, there's no rubedo. You have to go through it in order to grow. Transformation on any scale, it can be, we're talking about shadow work and the shadow, but of any scale, it requires death. And that is another universal law. Our lives are governed by the very same cycle. We're born, we die. Cycles will always play out, they'll always repeat. And in order for you to grow, there has to be some kind of death. Obviously not a physical one. Metaphysical, if you want to call it that. Psychological. Think of it like compost. Is it compost or is it compost? I don't know, but you guys know what I'm talking about. You throw a bunch of crap in it, basically, right? The food scraps, the waste, the garbage, as my Americans call it, all that stuff. And over time, it becomes fertile soil. And your shadow is the exact same thing. If you don't face it, your garden stays dead. I'll be really honest with you guys. I had a phase in my own spiritual journey, if you want to call it that, where I mistook knowing for becoming. Meaning I had researched a lot of, you know, really deep ancient texts, esoteric stuff. And I thought that because I could talk about these things, it was a reflection and a sign to me that I had grown. And unfortunately, you know, if you're returning to the channel, you'll know I've spoken about this a lot. Unfortunately, a lot of people find themselves in a similar position nowadays. And on the outside, I could have told you about Hermeticism. I could have told you about tarot. I could have told you about alchemy. I could have told you about all of these things, right? But I hadn't actually grown as a person. You know, if I'm in traffic and the traffic's taking long, within seconds I'll be swearing at someone. You know, if my football team let in a stupid goal or something, I'll be swearing at the TV. Are these really the actions of a enlightened individual or someone who has progressed spiritually? Something a friend told me that really stuck with me to this day. Your spiritual growth, it isn't necessarily a measure of what you can say or what you can talk about. It's how you act behind closed doors. You know, it's how you treat your family. It's how you treat a random stranger that you walk by on the streets. It's in your actions. It's how you embody that growth as opposed to what you say. And I think there's a lesson in that for everyone. It's important that we judge people not off of what they say, but off of how they act and their behavior and how they embody these teachings, you know. And that's where I kind of, not to go too off topic, but that's where I pick a bone with a lot of religious people, because I think that they aren't embodying, they aren't living out those texts, you know. And it's a shame. I think that's a lot of people go wrong there, but I don't want to get too sidetracked. The reason I'm even telling you this story is your shadow will humble you at some point. It's going to remind you that, listen, you motherfucker. That's an impression of mine. Listen, you motherfucker. You think you're enlightened. You think you're doing all this and that. You think you've progressed. No. I'm going to show you what it looks like when Cody Gakpo is one-on-one with his man. This is football, by the way. And skies it or makes a terrible pass. I'm going to show you how you react. And then tell me that you're enlightened. That's what it does. I kid you not. In all seriousness, I thought I was conscious, but I wasn't. The same unhealed wounds, the same patterns, repeating themselves just in different forms. Different partners, same wounds, recurringly. And to be honest, I feel bad because in the past, looking back, I would always place that blame externally and I would always think in my head, it's them, it's this or that. I'm the fucking common variable here. I'm the problem. And this isn't easy to admit, okay? Taking this level of responsibility, it's not easy, or accountability, I guess you could call it. Not easy, but necessary. Necessary for your own evolution. The moment you reclaim that sovereignty and you decide to start calling the shots rather than the repressed parts of you, rather than your shadow, that's the moment everything will change. Now, I've actually included some really good practical tools within this video that I'm going to share with you guys because I'm such a nice fucking guy and I really want to see you all grow. But before we get to that, there are some common mistakes that people make during their shadow work journeys. Now, shadow work, as you can probably imagine, is the process of integrating an individual's shadow, aka working on those repressed parts of yourself, bringing them to the light, making the unconscious conscious so that you can hopefully achieve a state of individuation, aka wholeness. Thank you very much. Mistake number 1. People thinking the shadow is only the bad stuff. Remember, the golden shadow exists and there are parts of you that are fucking excellent, but you have unfortunately buried. Let them be free. Bring them out. Mistake number 2, treating the shadow like it's an enemy in a video game that you have to defeat. That mindset does not work. What you resist persists. Oh, I like that. We're trying to integrate those parts of you here. We're not trying to perform an exorcism. Mistake number 3, one of the biggest ones, staying in the head. Writing about the shadow endlessly, but never actually embodying change. I'm going to be calling out some people here. Shadow work is not just journaling. It's literally choosing differently. It's how you act on a day-to-day basis. It's making conscious decisions in the moment. And listen, I'm going to keep it 100 with everyone watching this video. If you think shadow work is just about journaling, then you fucking lost before you've even started. You can journal all you want, but you're not doing shadow work. You're writing a diary, basically. Real integration means action. It means embodiment, and it means facing that thing head on in real time. If you can avoid these common mistakes, shadow work goes from some bullshit self-help practice to literally a life-changing, transformative path. It will change your life if you actually apply yourself. I cannot stress that enough. Okay, now for the juicy stuff. How do we actually work with it? The first exercise that I'm going to share with you guys is something that is called shadow dialogue. Really, really powerful tool I've used with people in the past. How does it work? Whenever you sabotage yourself, pause. And this is going to require, awareness. So if you're not meditating by now, I would definitely recommend doing so because it will help. It's like the cherry on top if shadow work was a big ass cake. That was weird. But it will help. And when you pause, ask yourself, what are you protecting me from? Most of the time, our shadows aren't malicious. They actually want the best for us. They exist to protect us. So we want to find out, what is it protecting us from? Think of it like this. It's the scared 7-year-old that you've locked in your basement. I don't know where I'm going with that. That sounds out of context. That sounds a bit mad. I was going to say it's your scared 7-year-old. Then I realized that sounds weird as well. Let's not lock any kids in our basements, please. It's the part of you that you've repressed. And remember, it's just lacking in love. I'm going to quickly move on. Next, something that I like to call trigger journaling. In fact, I'm going to do a cool edit here. Trigger journaling. Every time you get fired up in a certain situation, write down the trigger. Write down what your brain tells you. Oh, they don't respect me. I'm not enough. I'll never be good enough. Write this down. And then, in your journal, you're going to flip the script. Fuck that story. We're rewriting a new one now. Ask yourself, where did that script even come from? No one is born into this world thinking these things. We're taught them, unfortunately. We take them on board. We inherit all of this bullshit. So we want to unlearn it and kind of trace it back to its origins so that we can figure out why it even exists in the first place. Next, spotting the projection. Anytime you find yourself triggered, okay, it can be anything. Try to take yourself out of the moment and think to yourself, what have I repressed within me that is annoying me so much about this person or this group or whatever the situation is? Where in me does this live? And listen, I don't want you to necessarily excuse, another individual's behavior. If someone's a dick, they're a dick. But they can be a dick, but they can be a good dick. They can be a dick that kind of helps us. Again, I don't know where I'm going with this. My mind is so weird sometimes. Their dick can help us, help reveal certain things about our shadow. Right, I'm quickly moving on. And lastly, I'm just going to call this integration habit. When an emotion hits, I want you guys, especially the men, I think guys struggle with this more than girls. I don't want you to suppress the emotion. I want you to really feel it in your body. You can scream into your pillow, ah! You can go for a run, or you can even physically shake it out, hit a workout, whatever the case may be. I want you to feel it. Then breathe and return back to base. That's alchemy in motion, turning raw emotion into gold. I use the example of the gym, and I've talked about this previously. Have you ever thought how many people start hitting the gym? I mean, what a transformative pursuit that is, from a place of pain. It's interesting, isn't it? Another one. So many business owners are running from past traumas that they haven't integrated, building up this external business to protect themselves from ever feeling small again. Alchemy is reflected in so much of day-to-day life. It's insane. And remember, your shadow is not going to magically vanish just because you wrote about it once. That's like buying a gym membership and then expecting your biceps to grow just because you've bought the membership. It doesn't work like that, sadly. You've got to actually go and move the weight. Just like with shadow work, you've got to actually commit to these exercises. It's unlikely that you're going to have a big breakthrough from the start, but if you persist, as I said earlier, your life will change. And by the way, this is the kind of stuff I help people with inside of Unlock Your Inner Gold. Not running from the shadow per se, but turning it into fuel. It's not for everyone, I have to warn people, okay? But if you are curious, I'll leave a link below. Here's the truth. You never quite kill your shadow. That's not a thing. You don't exile it, okay? You don't gaslight it with affirmations. You dance with it. And if you don't lead the dance, then that shadow is going to lead it for you. Darkness, and I don't want you people taking this out of context, because I already get enough fucking weirdos accusing me of like being a Satanist or some shit like that. I don't even understand. Darkness is not your enemy, especially on an individual level. It's initiation. Sit with that and think about this. The world worships light, success, positivity, the highlight reel, all that stuff. But the shadow is where your true power hides. Your creativity, your authenticity, even your ability to love. The people who own their shadow, they don't get controlled by it. They don't get consumed by darkness. They achieve wholeness. They achieve individuation. They become better than they ever were in the past. And that's a beautiful thing to see, really. Your shadow, again, it's not a demon that we're trying to get rid of. That's the worst way to look at it. It's kind of like having a really annoying flatmate, all right? Or if you're a landlord, having a really fucking annoying tenant who parties all night and just gets high all the time and drinks alcohol and makes a mess and noise and yeah, basically, right? Imagine having like imagine you're a tenant. Imagine you're a landlord, and your tenants are basically like a fraternity party. Annoying as fuck, right? Like no one would want that. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. But if you learn to tolerate them, okay, perhaps even live with them, they will teach you more about yourself than any peaceful, calm, all-loving tenant could. because it's in those moments that we learn the most about who we are, and more importantly, the parts of us that we may have repressed. That's what integration is. It's not necessarily exiling or kicking out the shadow, it's learning to live with it. And that's why we say making the unconscious conscious, because only when you're aware of what's going on can you, again, live with it and harmonize together in a almost conjoined rhythm. So stop trying to be pure light. Instead, get intimate with your darkness until it becomes gold. If you haven't already, a like and a sub would be really appreciated. Let me know what you guys think about this video as well. I can make more in future. You're going to be seeing a lot more, I guess, uncensored videos from me moving forward. I kind of fell out of love with YouTube a little bit, creating content. But now I'm back, having fun more importantly. And I have discovered my third lung, just as the great Kobe Covington once said. I'll see you guys next time.